You're listening to another episode of the Just Go Bike podcast. That's AKA Murph.
And that's AP. And this is the podcast where we talk about cycling just for the fun of it. With tales from all over the nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile.
Well, hey Murph, how's it going?
It is going great. AP, how's it going there in, where are you in, Des Moines?
I am in Des Moines, Iowa in the new, improved Parrot Talk Studios.
Ooh, new and improved Parrot Talk Studios. I thought you were like in a mop closet or something.
I am, but I got some sound paneling and it's awesome.
Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah. I don't know if listeners know about world headquarters for Parrot Talk and Morphology Studios, but
we're highly technological. I'm in the heart of RAGBRAI HQ right now. It's the place to be. It feels like home after several iterations of Parrot Talk Studios. So we're happy to be here. But
okay.
Anyway, so you have something much more interesting coming up this weekend. You want to talk to the listeners about that a little bit?
Well, yes. If you're listening to this episode in mid-September, AP and I are getting ready to do the Great Iowa Fall Ride, which takes place at RAGBRAI World Headquarters.
That's right.
And it's a one-day bike ride, just kind of a time to gather, a real casual ride on the trail system in Des Moines. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and we're also going to have a huge garage sale here at the RAGBRAI HQ. We're going to do stuff like this again in the future. So,
cool.
And then after that, you're going to have a little traveling coming up, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Literally the day after the Great Iowa Fall Ride, I am jumping in one of those camper vans. There are 6 of us heading to South Dakota, and we are going to ride our bikes on a great rail trail called the Mickelson Trail.
That's so cool. You're going to have such an awesome time. I cannot wait to hear your report from the trail.
Yeah, I know. I did a little pre-check of weather. It's supposed to be it's almost exactly the same every single day. A high of 72, a low of 50 something. So it's going to be, in my opinion, beautiful. And okay, so I don't really know what people think about when they think of South Dakota. I think of really steep hills, lots of climbing. Well, the Mickelson Trail is, since it's an old train bed, I don't think it gets above 3% grade, but it's like I think one way it's like a 15-mile grind uphill. But we go through prairies, we go through forest, we have 4 super old tunnels, and then I think there's over 100 bridges. So it's, just going to be a really scenic ride. I'm excited for it.
Oh, I love that. Well, you better take a couple pictures so that we can see where you've been.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah. Beyond that, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Denise Mueller, my friend and yours, who is part of the Project Speed, and she is the world's fastest woman, and she has just broken yet another world record with her team.
Yes.
Denise and her teammates rode at, I believe, 61 miles an hour, which is a record for a team of that size in a bicycle vehicle called the Sprocket Rocket. I beg you to look it up because it is so cool. Again, her Instagram handle is Firecycle, and Denise, you're the bomb.
Yeah, it's like a little tiny tube where it's 5 women over 50, which is pretty cool. And they kind of almost lay flat, but it looks like a rocket, which is probably why it's called the Sprocket Rocket. Mm-hmm. And the world record is starting from 0 miles an hour and going as fast as you can I think it's at a 5-mile mark. Yeah. So they busted through the world record. So congratulations to those guys.
I mean, think about just riding on flat ground. To get to 60 miles an hour is insane, even as a team. I mean, that's just mind blowing to think about as a cyclist. I could probably get to 25 or something, So it's just really cool. And I know we're going to have Denise on the podcast in the future, so I don't want to get into it too much, but I just wanted to give her a shout out because it's such an amazing accomplishment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's super cool. Okay. So have you heard about 99 counties?
Well, I sure have, because they were on the RAGBRAI route this year.
Yes. So 99 counties, if you're not familiar with the state of Iowa, there are 99 counties in the state. Yeah. So there was a farmer that decided to name his business 99 Counties.
Yeah, and it's a really cool concept of the business where they're trying to they're farmers and they're trying to bring it back to more the way it used to be, um, away from factory farming and having a different relationship between the farmers and the food and connecting people like you and I who would be eating the meat with something that's locally grown.
Yeah, in the interview is Nick and Christian, and obviously you'll hear this in just a moment, but it was an interesting concept to think about. You know, he's like, if you go back to way back when farming was done a little bit differently, there wouldn't be 3,000 acres of corn because they would just have enough corn to feed their livestock, which maybe was 20 head of cattle and 50 pigs instead of, 3,000. So it was just interesting. He would be like, there would be a field of corn and a field of wheat and then, vegetables like a garden. And so the land was way different than it is now as far as Iowa goes. So it was really interesting.
Okay, so if you're interested in trying out 99 counties, they're going to be here with us at the Great Iowa Fall Ride, and that'll be this weekend, September 16th, and I believe they're going to be serving tacos.
Ooh. And the
Yeah.
cool thing about that, go to their website, 99counties.com. They have like a subscription service. So if you're wanting, it's kind of like, think back, maybe you're not old enough, AP, but like when the milkman used to come to your house and like drop off fresh milk in your little milk box, they can do the same thing with meat, where if you're I think it's in a certain part of Iowa and also Chicago, they will hand deliver your meat subscription to you. Of course, if you live somewhere else in the United States, they're going to, ship it to you.
Yeah.
But it's pretty neat because it's like meat from a humanely raised animal goes from being in the field to your home without a lot of steps in between.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more, you can come see them in person on the Great Iowa Fall Ride or check out our social media or go to their website, 99counties.com.
All right. Well, let's get to my interview with Nick and Christian.
Yeah.
All right. A warm welcome to Christian and Nick from 99 Counties. Hey, guys.
Hey, how are ya?
Hey, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. We were just talking before we pushed record. We are actually enjoying a nice, cool day here in Iowa. It's not, those of you thinking back to RAGBRAI when it felt like over 100 degrees. Like, this is very refreshing today, isn't it, guys?
Oh my God. I think I rode the whole thing, and then Nick and a bunch of our team had a booth, which honestly was more work because, that brutally hot Friday when I rolled through Amana and there was a sign for a swimming pool at the fire station.
Oh, yeah.
Saved my life. Anyone else who was in that thing, oh my God, it was such a great cold plunge. But for Nick and our team doing the booth, you're just standing there in the sun, not enjoying the rest of the experience. So I had a great time. And yes, it would be nice to be riding right now without such heat.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But that's Iowa for us. Like, it could be 100 degrees again tomorrow, or it could be snowing. So that's the fun of living here in the Midwest.
It does feel like fall is in the air.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay,
not quite ready, but it's close.
Yeah, I agree. So you both represent a great company called 99 Counties, which is why you're on the podcast. And I'm sure some listeners will be wondering, what's the connection with RAGBRAI? But we'll get to that for sure. But will you start out by each of you telling us where you live and maybe what cycling is like there?
Sure. I'll go first. I've lived a lot of places. I grew up in rural Connecticut, not on a farm, but had a lot of friends who were dairy farmers there. And then I lived in California for a while, in San Francisco, which has great cycling. That's what really turned me on to cycling. Now that I'm in Chicago, which is about where half our customer base is, and that's why I live there, there's great cycling along the lake. But it doesn't hold a candle to the RAGBRAI experience I had. And I've done a little bit of riding in and around Keystone here where we are on Nick's farm. like actually over to Belle Plaine, which is part of where this year's RAGBRAI route went. But I really enjoyed just the week of RAGBRAI, seeing, and you get a little spoiled because all the roads are closed and all that.
Right. So I was in Chicago this past weekend for Bike the Drive, which is when the city of Chicago closes down Lakeshore Drive for a morning, and there were over 10,000 cyclists. I don't know if you're a part of that, but totally beautiful.
That explains. It's funny. My girlfriend and I, she was like, they closed it and there's people biking on it. I was like, no, I did the triathlon last year and that was in August. Like, that can't be happening. So you've solved the mystery, and I'm outing myself as maybe not the most committed Chicago cyclist. That is such a cool experience because that's a really, really busy road and all that. And it's beautiful and it's along the water. And so having the opportunity to be on that when it's shut down just with other cyclists is pretty cool.
It was beautiful. Yeah. And how about you, Nick? Where are you from?
I grew up in Strawberry Point, Iowa, northeast Iowa. And then after hitting a bunch of different colleges and living all over the country, I made it back to our Century family farm just south of Keystone, Iowa. So it's 30 miles west of Cedar Rapids, for those who likely know where Cedar Rapids is. And yeah, I'm here on the farm with my wife and 3 kids. I have to fess up, I'm not a cyclist per se. A lot of gravel roads and not a lot of time when we're farming and raising kids. So I left I'm better off cooking food for people and letting Christian do the writing. So
yeah, well, we'll take that too. And I have ridden my bike to Keystone a couple times, especially a couple years when we were riding out to the start of RAGBRAI. And so I'm not saying I may have peed in one of your cornfields, but there is a tiny chance. So thank you, I guess I'll say, Nick. Thank you for the tall corn.
Absolutely. Well, you're
good fertilizer,
free fertilizer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into exactly what 99 Counties is. I experienced 99 Counties for the first time on RAGBRAI this year, and this just seems like the perfect time for you guys to be on to tell listeners about 99 Counties and kind of, maybe how your RAGBRAI experience was. So maybe start out by saying, what the heck is 99 Counties?
Right. Well, besides, 99 counties being what Iowa is, I before I formed the company, I had a vision to help, bring back small farmers in Iowa, but I was looking for a name and kind of a marketing and how I wanted to move my current 20-year-old business called Wallace Farms into a bigger vision. And I Googled how many counties were in Iowa, even though I had lived in Iowa half of my life, and 99 counties popped up. And that, to me, as a marketer, seemed like a really beautiful and powerful brand name. And essentially what we're trying to do, and this is a long-term goal, is we want to bring back small farmers, organic and regenerative, so chemical-free farming in all 99 counties. And essentially what we're trying to do is bring back the wealth and the health and the prosperity that Iowa had in the 50s and the 60s. So post World War II, it was probably one of the greatest times in a couple decades for Iowa. As you know, the countryside was populated with people that were raising animals, raising a wide variety of crops, farming, more in harmony with nature. And it just was a beautiful place of community, and small towns were bustling and thriving. I mean, just Keystone, Iowa back then had a bowling alley, a theater, a couple cafes. Main Street, my dad would tell me, when he was high school, Main Street, you couldn't find a place to park.
Oh, wow.
That was only a town of, 500-600 people. And so, not to be, I guess we're being realists, but it's a little bit gloomy if, as those towns that, people rode through on RAGBRAI, although, putting their best foot forward and trying to, bring fun and the small town vibe, you can see where a lot of those towns were very quiet, boarded up, not a
Oh,
lot
for
of
sure.
businesses.
Yeah.
And we are just, I mean, we're on the cusp of losing all the small farmers, and the small towns will, if they make it, will essentially just be a bedroom town. And there's just not that sense of community. So 99 counties is us trying to do that through farming and food, and by bringing the people in the city back to that experience, and they're doing it by a subscription of meat or a box of meat each month. So that's kind of the short answer of what the essence of who we are and what we're trying to do.
So when I'm pedaling across Iowa as part of RAGBRAI, especially this year, there were more than I could count what I call like confinement spaces. I don't know if you'd call them farms, but they were housing, like, I would almost guess thousands of either birds, chickens, turkeys, and also like pigs. I'm not a big fan at all of confinement, and I want to be careful what I say here because I'm sure there's people out there that are pro confinement. But are you talking about a different form of farming than that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it, and it is a tricky subject because there's a small bit of community here that has built those buildings and do make a living, and most of the grain flows through those. And most of those buildings that you probably saw were hog confinements.
Okay.
A couple thousand hogs that get finished there. They probably do a couple batches a year. Those really became popular in the 80s and the 90s. And it really displaced all of the farmers that were like my grandpa, who had 10 to 15, 20 sows, and they would raise hogs in more of an indoor-outdoor, like a monoslope shed,
Mm-hmm.
or they would raise them out on pasture. But my dad would always say that, hogs for the small farmer here in Iowa for a long time paid a lot of the bills. It took care of the family's expenses and mortgages and put some kids through college, and just really was the backbone. And so when the confinements came into business, and it was big business. So, now Smithfield owns almost all the pigs that are, maybe half the pigs, and Tyson owns the other half. Those hogs are owned by large corporations. And then they pay the farmer to put the building up on their land, and the farmer has to do the chores, but all the feed and all the hogs are not owned by the farmer. And then the farmer has to figure out what to do with all of that manure. And there's a pretty popular book called Swine Republic that addresses this. And again, it's a touchy subject, but you're right. I think it's the wrong kind of agriculture. I think it's raising the wrong type of food. And I think we're pushing profits and extracting profits from the rural communities, and we're going to lose that. So, Christian, I don't know.
Yeah, I would just add to that there's a whole part of the world out there, and I know as a recovering vegetarian, we all come through lives on our own journeys, but there are a lot of people that think eating meat is bad and eating animals is bad, and you really couldn't blame them for thinking that if you took them to certain hog confinements or certain feedlots. It's not a great environment for the animal. But the farming we practice, we work with farmers who, we've got this one guy who raises pigs for us named Jude Becker, who's, honestly, probably the best in the world. He's a jewel. He lives near Dyersville, near a Field of Dreams. And he cares so much for his animals. And there's like a very expert and particular way that he makes sure that the piglets are farrowed, and the way he takes care of them is really in harmony with nature and kind of out of a storybook. And that's how anyone who we work with for pork does it. All of the cattle, like here on Nick's farm, are rotationally grazed. And so, we're here to tell the world animal agriculture is beautiful. It's a part of all our heritage. It's, how we as humans have kind of thrived and nourished our bodies, especially if you're going to be biking, for a very, very long time. And so the vision Nick presented of kind of the 60s or the 50s of when Iowa was really thriving is when animal agriculture was done right and was outside. And So we just believe really strongly that there are people like you, people like a lot of the folks on RAGBRAI who care a lot about their health. And you know, animal fats, animal meat are actually a really key part of a very healthy diet. You just want to make sure you source them from the right places. And so we're just really grateful to have this incredible brand and this opportunity to work with small farmers and artisan processors to bring to life this dream of, you know, locally sourced regenerative meat that is not only better for your health, but, you know, also better for the animals, and also helping to bring back thriving small communities like Keystone, where we are today.
For sure. And, you know, this may sound funny, but I can't be alone. When I look at meat, you have to wonder the quality of life that that animal had. And it reminds me, I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Portlandia. It's like a comedy sketch type series. And there was a sketch where the couple went to a restaurant and they ordered chicken, and then they asked, you know, like, do you know where this chicken came from? And it was, you know, meant to be a parody, but the waitress brought back a binder and said, you know, here's the chicken's name, here's who he's friends with, here's what he does during the day, and, you know, how he sleeps at night. And so it was really funny. But yet when I, like, you know, see a plate of bacon, I'm like, oh man, I wonder how that pig lived before he, you know, got to this plate. So with that said, you know, you're doing that, right? You're trying to raise these animals in a better way. But then the best part is we, the consumers, can then purchase it from you. Is that correct?
That's correct. And going back to Portlandia, I remember that episode because they did all that. The server did all that work, and they're like, "Oh, this is all great." And they're like, "You know what? Could we go see the chicken?
Yeah.
Like, we'll come back." And they left. They left the restaurant. It was pretty classic.
It was a great, yeah.
But it does tell you, and here's what we're trying to do. Animal husbandry is becoming a lost art. You know, moving animals and putting them in the most comfortable and natural setting that animals should be if we're caring for them in the land, right? Rotating them and, you know, giving them shade when it's hot, or sunshine when they want it, mud and, you know, fresh grass, right? So there's husbandry and there's respect for the animals. And that goes from raising all the way through the slaughter, their last day. You know, people would say their worst day is their last day, and that's it. Other than that, it's great. So there's that. There's also the respect of whole animal utilization. Like, we've become a society where we only eat bacon and steaks and chicken breast, and we're trying to value add that animal to be like, hey, we should make high quality leather goods with the hide. We should take the bones and make high quality bone broth, and you know, maybe we turn that into soup, and maybe we feed impoverished kids. We take some of the trim and we make a delicious snack stick. That's the snack stick that we had just launched on RAGBRAI. And then still have steaks and bacon and chicken breast, but you know, there's more to a bird than just chicken breast. So if we've only become a culture of what we need when we want it, you know, any part of the time of the day, then some of these things become less sacred, and it doesn't do the farmer any good. And it doesn't do, you know, people like 99 counties that are trying to market the whole animals and value add them and not have waste in a society where, you know, things are more expensive. It's getting harder and harder to raise meat the right way. That, you know, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what we're trying to do. It's a whole process. You know, there has to be biodiversity on the farm, and there has to be animal husbandry, and there's got to be people that understand that food isn't just something you pick up in the grocery store.
Right.
That food actually comes from farmers, and it has to be, there's a level of artisan food maker, right? Processors, you know, big processors is probably what people think, but there used to be a locker in these small towns. Every small town kind of had its own butcher and baker and, you know, candlestick makers. So that's our push.
And where are we, to your question about the product. So today, we have this really awesome home delivery service, kind of like the milkman. So if you live in Iowa, within 100 miles of our headquarters here, which is, so anyone in the greater Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Des Moines area, and then the smaller towns in between, we deliver to customers' doorsteps with a reusable canvas bag with the frozen meat inside of it. It's grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pastured pork, chicken, turkey, lamb, and maybe soon to be bison. We also do eggs. And then for those of our RAGBRAI friends living elsewhere, because we've had such interest from folks who want to support this Iowan mission, we also do ship outside of the state. But for folks here, it's a local delivery service. And as Nick mentioned, we recently launched this meat stick. So people can find us on the website, 99counties.com, and get access to our great products. And at some point, maybe those meat sticks, the beef, the hot honey pork, and the honey pork might be available, via other outlets. But right now, it's all just through our website.
Excellent. And what's the website again?
It's 99counties.com, 99 as in the numbers, and then counties.com. We haven't exactly figured out how Chuck Grassley doesn't own that, and we do, but I think it's a cool brand that Nick came up with.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is an amazing experience in itself, to be able to go back to the old days where you could just order your meat and your eggs and have them come to your doorstep. Like, that is cool in itself. So shout out to you guys. That is awesome.
Thanks. And thanks to customers like you and anyone listening, to make it work. It only works if we have a real density of customers, which candidly, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close in Iowa where, it really starts to be efficient the more and more people that sign up.
And one more thought about the small town locker. The only experience I've had with small town lockers is when I have a friend who has gone out into the wilderness and shot or bow and arrow a deer. And that's, when I think of lockers, that's all I think about. So gosh, it would be so great to, have that lost art of taking an animal and turning it into food for, who knows, a whole winter. That you're doing it. So it's so awesome.
Yeah. And I just, something you made me think of, right, is what's really key to us to helping people understand is, we are a part of nature. And so being closer to nature is actually the way that we can appreciate it more. And that's why, today it's really, in the industrial revolution and economies of scale that dictates, hey, let's do 3,000 acres of just corn, and then let's over here have a big confinement, and we're going to all specialize in our little areas here. But then that has these negative externalities where these hog confinements have way too much manure, and that can create water pollution issues. Instead, if you have a farm, whereas Nick always loves to say grain used to walk off the farm, meaning the animals consume the grain that was there, you can have the right ratio of a little bit of manure from those hogs that refertilizes that same land to grow more grain for them to consume. So we just see it as, ultimately, it's actually more efficient to have a farm with a lot of diversity of crops and animals. It's just that it's a lost art, and there's less economies of scale in doing it this way. And so we're trying to make it more viable. There's a lot of we have interest from more farmers today than we have demand from customers. There's a lot of farmers who want to farm this way, and we're trying to make the market for them.
Awesome. So everybody who's listening, write it down on a piece of paper, 99counties.com. So when you're done with this episode, you got to get online. But okay, so you guys were, or at least 99 Counties was present during RAGBRAI.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a blast. Again, I feel kind of, I got to ride the whole thing. I had a flag on the back of my bike, which probably some people listening to this being like, oh my gosh, that annoying flag. But I had a flag that said counties jutting off the back of the bike, and did the whole thing and just had such a blast. I try to, I grew up in Connecticut, spent a lot of time in California. And so I'm trying to explain to people what RAGBRAI is. And I'm like, man, it's the 4th of July in every town. Every time you go through, there's, Beekman's ice cream, and there's a water slide, and there's burgers, and there's it's just so joyous and so much fun. I just had such a blast. And Nick can tell you, more about his experience, because I think this was his first time. He'd done it in the past as a vendor. And we had a booth where we were introducing our snack sticks and had a Papa Shack game. So I'll let Nick talk a little bit more about, what we were doing en route in terms of sharing 99 counties with folks.
Yeah, we vended, I believe, five of the days, and we did the expo. And thousands of people, right, come by. They tried the snack sticks and maybe shot a few hoops and had a few laughs. But we had some really good in-depth conversations, just like we're having now, about people that really understood what Iowa, once was, and that kind of reminisce on growing up maybe on a farm. Seems like a lot of people grew up on a farm. And now, you ask them, do their kids or grandkids, live on the farm? And it's like, oh, no, everybody's moved to the city. So, if COVID taught us anything, I would say it made people realize they need to get back maybe more into the land and on the land, and maybe get away from the city, and then maybe not live, out here, but maybe we could pull those people back and get them to, do things like RAGBRAI. But, and even some of the younger people, I think, that we talked to and had really good conversations, they seem to get it. We're becoming, in this age of Aquarius, we're coming to a point where I think people want to know where their food comes from, and they're not as trusting anymore that what they're being told or sold to, or the packages in the grocery stores and in general are authentic. So I think people are looking for an authentic experience in life. And as we know, food and dining and food experiences and breaking bread with people, that's when people seem to let down their hair. And that's generally in culture now and in past. That's when, memories are made and people, come together and celebrate. So, that's kind of the essence of what we're trying to do.
And would you say, I'll ask Nick this, was RAGBRAI what you expected as far as, like you mentioned, the interactions with people, the volume of people? We already know it was hot, but the experience, was it what you expected?
Well, I know that this was a special ride because it was the 50th. So I was just shocked by the sheer numbers of people. If I had to do it over again, I'd say we would probably set up a really kick-ass food vending, grilling station.
Ooh.
Because I think a lot of people, they're hungry, they're looking for calories, and they want to sit and relax. And the lines, everyone did their best, but it seemed like there was a lot of lines for vendors. So and I think we could tell our message again through food. We did it really well through snack sticks, and we had a limited teams. And I don't have a huge ability to have one of these big smoker rigs, but I think if we do it again, I think that's where we can make even more of an impact.
Well, how about both of you, or one of you, either of you, tell us some good memories from RAGBRAI?
Boy, let's see. Met a group of folks from Illinois on the second or third day, and RAGBRAI, as listeners will know, is a cash environment. Some places take credit card, but most don't. And they're telling me all about Beekman's ice cream, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have any cash." And they're like, "Well, we'll buy you one." I was like, "All right, well, you can buy that later. We'll give you some meat sticks, give you a free fanny pack." So meeting strangers and getting treated to my first Beekman's ice cream, that was pretty special. And then there was the gentleman right next door there with the cold plunge setup. So that was nice.
Oh, yeah.
And then more than anything, just the generosity and the community of people. I made a friend who I biked with for a couple of days. And this jerry rigged thing I had with my flag on the back of my bike for 99 counties, it fell off 2 miles before we got to Iowa City. And he helped me with it. And wouldn't you know, 1 minute later, for anyone who's done RAGBRAI, the Air Force was there, because they're just everywhere trying to help people. And they helped me, resurrect the back of my bike and made it down. And then I had quite a scare the last day. I mean, we were probably 3 miles from the end. You know, 550 miles across, and there were a couple of U.S. Space Force individuals just hauling butt. I'll say. I'll try not to swear. Sorry, Mom. But just going so fast, and a couple of us fell in behind them, just, you know, going for it at the end there, which is the stupidest time. And there was a place where we had to cross over from 2 lanes to 1, and there was a little bit of a, you know, where the pavement meets, and there's a bit of a groove in the road.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow my front wheel caught it, and I went down hard. I mean, I think I had to be going 25 or 30. And I mean, I just still think it's a miracle. I had a nasty road burn and welt on my hip and my arm. And unfortunately, I took out an individual behind me who so luckily was okay too, just a little bumped up. And sure enough, right after we fell, 6, I feel like we're doing a promotion here for Air Force people appeared and helped us up and patched us up. And so, you know, I had more fun with just kind of the experience than I could have ever imagined. And just it furthered my passion for what Nick and I are doing here, because I think there's just so much to appreciate and love about rural Iowa. But then also just the generosity of the people, and kind of one of those experiences that just restores your faith in humanity and kind of people being friendly to one another.
Oh, for sure.
I would double that and say, you know, RAGBRAI is is a community, building community, enjoying each other, food. You know, I think we lose track of that as humans, and we get busy with, you know, making money, raising kids, and distracted with, you know, all the other things in life. So if we could harness the essence of that and turn it into a rebuilding of the Iowa that people travel through every year. And so imagine, I'm going to pick a little bit on GMO corn and soybeans, right? But and I wrote the blog, Praise the Lord. And that was one of our t-shirts that I think if we had $1 for every photo that somebody took of the booth with our Praise the Lord, we had racing jerseys too. I mean,
and for those of you coming to the fall ride, we've got some of those shirts left.
Oh,
so.
good.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'll put a link to that article in our show notes, because it's on the ragbrai.com site. So anyway, sorry, Nick.
Great. No, that's perfect. We you know, the ride was what, 72 or 3, right? So that'd be 50.
73. Yep.
I don't know how many people, you know, that rode the first one that were on this one, but the landscape was so different back then. I mean, it was populated with, you know, farmers outside moving cows, and you know, hogs outside, and oats and corn and soybeans and hay fields and barley and wheat and probably more orchards. I mean, it was just, we had so much more diversity back then, and the small towns had to have just been booming and bustling. And I would just love to see, I really hope it doesn't take 50 years, but if I'm around, I would love to see for the 100th RAGBRAI that it looks just like the first one.
Oh, wow.
You know, the landscape looks just like the first one. And maybe we, you know, hopefully selfishly we can get there sooner, maybe in 20 or 30 years. But I think I'm trying to manifest that. That would be a great vision, to have the 100th be more like the first than more like the 50th. So.
And it's pretty clear, you know, as you mentioned, one of you mentioned about, you know, knowing where your meat comes from, or where any of your food comes from. There's a sense of simple, you know, you want food to be real and maybe organic, but also raised properly and grown properly, all of that good stuff. And I think it shows when you have, you know, X number of thousands and thousands of people that want to come to Iowa, use their vacation to ride their bikes out in nature for 7 days, kind of shows you that even if they don't know it, there's an unconscious feeling of, I want to go back to simpler times.
Absolutely. And I think the food is a big part of it. Like I would bet a lot of people, you know, it's a lot about the bike riding, but actually, if anything, the bike riding is like a medium and a reason to do all the other things. And I
Yeah.
think like the food is a big part of it.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody mentioned the Great Iowa Fall Ride. And so let's get into that. That's an event RAGBRAI puts on. It's much smaller than RAGBRAI. It's meant to be kind of just a rah-rah, it's fall, let's get together. Maybe we can talk about RAGBRAI. Coming up September 16th. And I think you guys are going to be there.
We are. We're going to be providing the food. I have a couple friends of mine at Taste to Go in Des Moines that are caterers. They're going to set up the full spread. Imagine it being like a elevated Chipotle. So we're going to do some barbacoa, some shredded beef, and we're going to do some grilled chicken thighs chopped up, and we're going to do some elevated tacos. And so we should have a full spread there. And we just want to talk to, give people a sample of, two of our products, and then talk to people about, how can they support us, right? I mean, that's usually how things, how movements are created, is with, people's energy. And, in this case, people's energy would be, money. And if people are listening to this, and they shop at Fairway, they shop at Hy-Vee, they, and out-of-staters have their own grocery stores, right? It's not that we don't think that people are going to stop going to the grocery store. I mean, what we're trying to do is say, consider taking $150 or $200 a month out of your budget and signing up for a subscription with us and getting that 10 to 15, 20 pounds of the staples, the things that you want the highest quality for: ground beef, sausages, hot dogs, some steaks, a whole chicken, some thighs, right? Like, I still go to the grocery store too for things, but we just want people to say, you know what, this is a priority. We want to support 99. We want to support the farmers, right? Like, we're just doing some of the hard stuff in the middle, but we're paying our farmers really well to raise those animals and feed them the right way, and create some biodiversity on the land. So we spend if I look at, how I spend my money, I've got all sorts of subscriptions and things going here and there, but I would, if I was the outside looking in, I would probably very much be supportive of signing up for a monthly box, because it's makes sense. It's easy. It's kind of the Iowa nice, if you're in Iowa, we deliver it to you. If we're outside, we'll get it to your door in a couple days with FedEx. So, that's what I want to imprint here.
And you'll, at the Fall Ride, we'll be doing the food, and, we'll put our money where our mouth is, that you can try the food and you'll like it.
And are you a vendor that will be selling, or are people, as part of the registration, will get to sample your food?
Yeah, I believe probably a bracelet. If you pay for the ride or sign up and register, the meal's free. And then if anybody's an add-on or comes without, the bracelet or the registration, we'll sell the tacos separately. So we're
excellent.
We're there for the crowd.
Good. And of course, you can go to RAGBRAI.com and click on Great Iowa Fall Ride to get registered. I'll be there. Sounds like, will both of you guys be there?
We will. Yep.
Excellent. All right. Well, tell everyone again your website, so that now that this podcast is coming to an end, they can get online and kind of experience and learn about all that you do. Sure.
It's 99counties.com. It's 99, the number, counties.com. And there's some videos on there that, from my farm and Jude Becker and the Jules that do the turkeys. If you're looking for a turkey for Thanksgiving, you can't find a better organic turkey than ours. And so we're here trying to make some change, and we're trying to have, the most delicious food. That's the most important. And then the convenience of a delivery right to your house.
And a friend of mine just texted me. He said, What are the because we only recently, you can also order if you're not in Iowa, and so I have friends elsewhere and they're starting to order, and the one guy says, oh, what are the recommendations, from the people at the company? And I sent a list of 20 things, and he's like, man, that is a long list. I'm like, well, they're all so good, which I have to recommend, folks.
So you recommend everything.
You gotta have the skirt steak, but for the love of God, don't not marinate it. I mean, my uncle did that recently, and I've about slapped myself in the face because I've got some incredible recipe for you for the skirt steak. The bacon, I mean, we're always running out of, and honestly, some of the pork products, like just simple ground pork. Oh my God, it's so good. I mean, we have so many great products that I'm constantly basically finding a new one, and just I'm always reminded of that's part of what's really fun about our business is such delicious food that we create.
I love it. Well, thank you guys both for coming on the podcast. And there maybe in your future, once you really go big, you'll have to have like a recipe book as well that says 99 counties, the best recipes for our products.
That's a very good idea.
We like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you September 16th on the Great Iowa Fall Ride.
Great. See you there. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Murph.
Well, listeners, that is it for this week. We both want to thank you for tuning in to listen to the Just Go Bike podcast.
And if you'd like to contact us with a comment about the podcast, or maybe you have a topic in mind, you can reach us at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can also follow us on social media at Just Go Bike on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. And if you have any extra time, pop on over to the Murphology podcast for more bike adventure interviews.
All right, that's a wrap. We'll be back next week. Until then, just go bike!